live in the heart of Appalachia. This is seriously the most terrifying experience I've ever had. Welcome back to Scary Stories with Vic. Tonight we're reading a story about Appalachia. And he says it's a true story and it's utterly terrifying to him. So let's read it. This story may be short or it may be drawn out. I'm recounting these events as I type, as it was honestly one of the most terrifying, most horrifying things I have ever experienced, and it brings me genuine stress to think about. This happened maybe 2 to 3 years ago. I live in southern West Virginia and have my entire life. The woods and mountains surround every direction you look, and nighttime is a darkness that you can never dream of unless experienced. I was with a friend. I'll call him Mark. Mark was at my house one evening, doing the usual things, watching UFC, playing Xbox, etc. It was extremely late when we finally got bored and decided to go for a walk on a nearby trail to smoke a joint. Not a particularly long trail, but it is very dense in the woods that surround it, and it is easy to get freaked out when thinking of your surroundings. Finally get to about halfway on the trail, about 30 minutes in, where we stop, pack our joint, and stand on the trail to chill and talk. The forest is very alive tonight. There are always noises in the woods, but the amount of animal activity for the first time was unsettling. At this point, it was probably past 1 a.m. This was strange and kind of eerie, but not alerting, as any sort of predatory animal in the area may cause a disturbance. We finish smoking and continue our walk when almost immediately the forest falls dead quiet. And as soon as the forest goes quiet, there is a voice. It almost sounds like a mocking humanoid voice, shaky and uncertain. Almost like an old children's toy, like the ones where the crackly speakers and robotic voice, if you know what I mean. It immediately sets us off. We bolt directly down the opposite length of the trail, but the sound does not gain distance. It doesn't get closer per se, but no matter how far we run down the trail, this eerie voice remains the same volume, going over and over with no quieting or stopping. At this point, I am convinced that we are in genuine danger, something I have felt very few times. Finally, after sprinting for who knows how long, we exit the trail, and almost at the verge of tears of how frightening this was. We begin to exit the trail, and about 5 minutes from the exit, there is a bone-shaking, heart-stopping, murderous scream from directly behind us. I know what a mountain lion sounds like. This was not an animal. This was not someone playing or watching a movie. This scream sent birds flying from nests and made my heart drop into my stomach. It was the most genuinely depraved and violent scream that I have ever heard. This is a true story that I only told about maybe 3 people, all of whom seemed to brush it off as false. I've never been a person to push for the existence of the paranormal or spiritual, but I genuinely believe I encountered something inhuman in those woods. I know I'll receive questions such as what the voice was possibly saying or to explain the area and what happened after. I genuinely cannot remember what the voice was saying, if anything intelligible. I don't know if I could understand it then, and I certainly can't recall understanding it after several years of blocking it out of my memory. All that I recall is that it was a fluctuating voice in pitch, shaking, almost joining sounds together. After running from the scream at the end of the trail, we ran to the car, which was only about 5 more minutes from the trail, so we got there relatively fast from sprinting. I've never been a person to push for the existence of the paranormal or spiritual, but I genuinely believe I encountered something inhuman in those woods that night. There are so many stories about the Appalachian Mountains, and to think that they're really not far from where I am at in South Carolina, that is spooky and a place I really don't want to venture to. Do you have any Appalachian stories that you've read or you like? Send them in scarystories.withvic@gmail.com. I need more email submissions, so hope you guys sleep good tonight.
If you grew up anywhere near the Appalachians, then you probably have heard the rule where you do not answer any voices that you hear outside at night. This is After the Fire Stories, where I tell scary stories after the fire has gone out. So grab your favorite snack, your emotional support drink, and settle in, because tonight's story is about someone who broke that rule exactly once. I've gone back and forth on whether to send this because people online make Appalachian stories sound weirdly corny sometimes, and I swear that's not what this is. I grew up in eastern Kentucky, not way out off the grid or anything, but rural enough that you knew your neighbors and you knew the woods behind your house better than the roads in town. My mama used to say all kinds of stuff about the mountains at night, and most of it I took as old people rules. Don't whistle after dark. Don't follow a voice if you can't see who it belongs to. If something calls your name from the tree line and it sounds almost right, go inside and lock the door. I thought it was just mountain folklore. When I was 19, my cousin and I were driving back from a bonfire at maybe 1 in the morning. We weren't drunk. I want to be clear about that because that's always what people jump to first. We were tired though. It was one of those roads that cuts between old woods and a drop off on one side, no street lights, just your headlights and whatever your brain starts inventing in the dark. My cousin was driving. We had the windows cracked because this truck's AC sucked. And about halfway back, we both heard somebody yell my name from the woods on my side of the truck. Not scream, just call it like they knew me. It sounded enough like my brother that my first stupid thought was, why would he be out here? My cousin looked at me and said, was that Eli? And before I even answered, so I know I didn't imagine it, he heard the same thing. Then it said my name again, a little farther up the road this time, like whatever it was had moved without us hearing it move. My cousin rolled the window up immediately and said, don't say anything. That should have been enough. It should have. But I was 19 and trying to act tougher than I felt, so I said, just under my breath, who's there? The woods went dead silent. And I mean dead. No bugs, no tree frogs, nothing. You don't realize how loud the mountains are at night until all of it cuts out at once. My cousin stepped on the gas. I remember laughing a little because I was nervous, and right then, from directly behind the truck, like right on the tailgate, something yelled my name again. Not my brother's voice this time. Same cadence, same rhythm, but lower, rougher, almost wet sounding. And my cousin started praying out loud, which he does not do. He is not that guy. We got to my house and both sat there for a second before getting out, and the porch light was on, and I could see my mom asleep in her recliner through the living room window. Normal, safe, everything fine. I almost convinced myself right then that we just scared ourselves. Then my cousin grabbed my arm and pointed back at the truck. There were handprints all over the tailgate. Not muddy, not bloody, just darker than the paint, like somebody with cold hands had been slapping and dragging their palms all across it. They were too long, that's what I remember. The palms looked narrow and the fingers looked too long. And my mom said we probably brushed against wet branches. My cousin didn't even argue with her, he just left. And for the next week, I kept hearing somebody walking behind the house at night, slow and steady steps in the leaves. And my bedroom was on the back side facing the woods, and around 2 or 3 every morning, I'd wake up and hear something circle the house once, sometimes twice, never fast, like it was going slowly on purpose. It knew it had time. Then it started calling me, always from the woods, always just beyond where I could see with the porch light. Sometimes it sounded like my brother, once it sounded like my mom, once it sounded exactly like my cousin, which made no sense because he was at college by then, and it never said anything except my name at first. I made the mistake one night of looking out. I didn't go outside, but I pulled the curtain back because I was so angry and just tired and wanted it to just be some idiot messing with me. There was a shape standing at the edge of the tree line, too tall, but not in a dramatic monster way, just tall enough that it felt wrong against the trees. I couldn't see a face. I could see shoulders and arms and the suggestion of a head, probably, and I knew somehow it was looking right at me. Then, in my mother's voice, it said, "You already answered me." I moved out 2 months later. My mom still lives in that house and swears nothing like that ever happened to her, but she also nailed a little iron horseshoe over the back door after I left, and she had never done that before in her life. The part I've never gotten over is this. About a year later, my cousin finally admitted that when I first answered it from the truck, he heard something answer me back from his side too. It said, almost. Yeah, absolutely not. The second something in the woods starts using your voice, that's just, I'm done. So this has been After the Fire Stories. If you have any scary stories, then go ahead and send them in to me and I might read yours next.
You've heard the Appalachian ghost stories, but have you heard the Scottish ones? I'm Amelia Ives, your favorite fantasy witchy author living in Edinburgh, and I've got some spooks for you. I came across a ghost story set on George Street in Edinburgh, so let's read it together and never walk down this street again. Let's dive in. A man had been walking along George Street one afternoon when he noticed a woman just ahead of him. There was something about her that caught his attention. Nothing immediately frightening, but just off. Her clothes were elegant, but clearly from another time, completely out of pace among everyone walking down the street. Curious, he quickened his pace and passed her so that he could turn and look properly at her face. And when he did, a chill ran through him. He said it looked like the face of the perished. Not pale, but unnatural, as though there was no life in her eyes at all. What unsettled him further was that no one seemed to notice her. People walked past without a second glance. One man even walked straight through her and simply passed through her as though she wasn't there at all. At this point, the man realized he wasn't looking at a living person. Still, he followed her ghost. She moved steadily along George Street, never looking to either side until she reached a pharmacist's shop. She stepped inside and vanished. The man went in moments later and asked about her, but the pharmacist laughed and told him no one had entered. That night, the man dreamed about her. In the dream, she turned to him and said very simply, "I'm Jane." A few days later, the man saw her again on George Street. This time, the weather had turned and the rain was relentless. The streets were soaked and everyone was drenched, except for her. She walked ahead of him just as before, completely untouched by the rain. He passed her again, and once more he saw that same empty stare in her eyes. There was a man walking by with his dog, and when they passed the ghost, the dog started to bark relentlessly. From this, the man knew that this wasn't just some figment of his imagination. Whatever she was, others, or at least animals, could sense her too. And I like to think animals see things that we can't. This man became determined to find out who she was. After some searching, he found a woman who had once owned a shop on that very street and asked her about this ghostly figure. The woman of the shop said that there used to be a dress. My light just died, so forgive me. After some searching, he found a woman who had once owned a shop in that very building, and she told him about a dressmaker named Jane who had worked there years before. Jane had sold the business and almost immediately regretted it. She became convinced she had ruined herself and returned again and again, desperate to reclaim what she had lost. Her behavior became increasingly erratic, until she eventually lost her mind completely. Even before people claimed to see her moving in and out of the shop, as though she still belonged there. Even after her demise, the sightings continued. Same figure always, walking down the same route, returning to the same place. The man never saw her again after that, although he said that he hoped she finally found her peace. It didn't quite feel like she had, because every time she appeared, she was still going back to the shop. If you have any ghost stories about Scotland, please share them with me. I'm happy to speak on it.
This story is called Appalachia. I grew up in the Appalachian Mountains, still live there to this day, but we moved out of the deep forest after an incident. So growing up, I had this dog named Snowball. He was the sweetest thing. Living in the Appalachia drove the poor thing crazy. It would have drove me crazy too, Snowball. Every night when the sun was set, we had our nightly procedures. Lock the doors, close the blinds, don't open anything after sunset. Well, one night it was getting late, but you could still see the light outside. So I decided to take Snowball out to use the bathroom. He was a little wary, but I clipped his leash on so he wouldn't run away. I kept feeling like something was watching me. Living in the Appalachia, something probably was. Snowball would sniff around and then turn to this exact spot where I felt like I was being watched. And he would growl, not his usual playful growl, more so like a menacing sort of scared growl. I felt my hand shake. I ignored the feeling at first, but when the dog acknowledged it, it was time to go. I pulled the dog with me and ran up to the house. I dragged Snowball inside and shut the door, but I forgot to lock it. I should probably mention that while I was taking the dog out, I heard animal noises of all kinds, but none of them sounded real. Anyways, I guess the door didn't close all the way when I ran back inside when I was playing with Snowball to make himself and myself feel better with everything that was going on. The door blew open with a bang, and Snowball, already having the zoomies, ran out and vanished into the woods. I loved that dog with everything at me, so I naturally ran after him. I was probably at the end of my driveway when I realized it was pitch black in the Appalachian Mountains, and I was in the open, so I bolted back inside. A week passes of my dog being missing, and I found him in the backyard. I was so happy, so I took him in, but he didn't look right. His eyes were red and almost human. I just ignored it because I thought the poor thing was scared out of his mind being in those woods for a week. But after that, he would do things that just weren't Snowball behavior. He was more observing us than living with us. Snowball would always snuggle in my lap, and when I sat down, this thing, whatever it was just staring. I knew it wasn't him. Thank you for coming to Midday Spooky Story Time with Shan. I hope you enjoyed, and this evening, look out for another story this evening, okay? And stay spooky.
I got my little jammies on, I got something to drink, the candle's lit, it's dark out, and let's talk about the Appalachian Mountains. If you haven't went down that series, you should, but I'm going to help you because I have a story for you right now. It's 2:17 a.m. Megan, I don't know if this is going to send, but you're the only person I thought might actually listen. You remember that trip I told you about, the one through the Appalachian Mountains? I shouldn't have gone off the trail. It was late, like the weird blue hour where everything looks fake. I swear the woods went quiet all at once. No bugs, no wind, nothing. Just still. That's when I saw the first one. At first I thought it was a tree bending. You know how the branches twist? But then it moved. Not like an animal. No weight to it. It just slid forward. Tall. Too tall. Its body was thin, like it had too many joints. Like it wasn't built right. And it didn't walk. It kind of just stretched from one place to another. I froze, and its eyes, they weren't reflecting light. They were glowing. Soft at first, like embers, then brighter when it realized I saw it. And then there was another one behind it. I don't know how long it had been watching me. I tried to act normal like I didn't notice. I turned around slowly and started walking back towards the trail, but I could hear them shifting. Not footsteps, more like branches bending in reverse. Then I heard something that made my stomach drop. It whispered my name, but it wasn't my voice. It sounded like my mom's. That's when I ran. I didn't care where I was going. I just ran, and the whole time I could hear them keeping pace. Not chasing, just matching me. Like they didn't need to hurry. At one point I tripped, and when I looked up, one of them was right there. Closer than it should have been. Its face, I can't even explain it. It was almost human, but stretched too long, like someone pulled it downward. And those eyes, they lit up my whole field of vision. And it tilted its head like it was curious, like I was the strange one. I scrambled up and just kept going until I saw the trail marker again. The second I stepped back onto the path, everything came back. The bugs, wind, sound, like nothing ever happened. But here's the part I can't shake. When I got back to my door, there was mud on the passenger door. Long streaks, like something tall had leaned down to look inside. I haven't slept since, and I need you to tell me something honestly. If something's out there that can learn your voice, how long do you think it watches before it tries to sound like you? Hear me out. The folklore of Appalachian Mountains and the unspoken rules are insane. You need to do some research. There's a literal video. This man was in the woods. Everything stopped. The grass moving, the birds chirping, the crickets chirping, like everything just stopped. And this was before the AI era. If you hear something calling your name, no you didn't, especially at night. People say never answer, never follow it, and definitely don't go looking, even if it sounds like someone you love. Don't whistle in the woods after dark. That's letting it know where you are or inviting it. If the forest suddenly goes quiet, leave. Normal woods have noise, bugs, wind, animals. If everything cuts off at once, that's a red flag. That's like birds around, you know? Never follow lights that aren't supposed to be there. Random glowing or flickering lights deep in the woods can lead you to somewhere that you don't need to be. If you feel like you're being watched, trust that feeling, even if you don't see anything, especially if you don't see anything. Stay on the trail always. This one's half practical, half eerie. It's easy to get lost in, but locals always say the deeper woods aren't meant for you. Don't look too hard in the trees at night. Your brain will start making shapes out of shadows, and those shapes will start staring back. If something looks almost human, but something isn't quite right, leave. Too tall, moving weird, standing where no one else should be. That's your cue to go. No second guessing. If you have a bad feeling, don't try to be brave. Just go. Don't go alone at night, ever. If you can help it. Even if you can't help it. If you have a dog, they can pee in the house for the night. I'm serious. Or you need to move. Make it back safely. Don't talk too much about what you saw. This one's more folklore than rule, but people say some things are better left alone once you're out. Just do your research. Come back for more. Okay guys, bye.
This is absolute madness. Have you seen the Appalachian Bigfoot footage that is making millions of people completely shocked? A series of insane clips has just surfaced from the deepest parts of the Appalachian Mountains, captured by a high-frequency lens that was never supposed to be public. And at first glance, it looks like a standard shot of the forest. But look closer at the movement between the trees, because as the camera tracks the brush, a massive humanoid silhouette emerges. It stands nearly 10 feet tall and moves with an unnatural gliding speed that defies every law of biology. This isn't just a bear or a hiker. It's a real sighting of the legendary Bigfoot, king of the Appalachians. This entity has been known for centuries as a master of evasion, expertly avoiding human technology. The fact that it is finally allowing itself to be caught on camera is a terrifying warning. So now theorists believe the anomalous zone in the mountains is expanding, forcing these ancient predators to move closer to human settlements. If you don't believe my story, search Appalachian Bigfoot right now and watch it. But what do you think is really happening in the mountains? Tell me in the comments.
Welcome back to After Midnight Stories. I used to live about 3 hours away from the Appalachian Mountains, and if you've ever heard Appalachian stories, then you know that they are truly scary. But I think I found the scariest of them all. I hope you're all tucked into bed, because after this one, you may not want to get out. I need to tell you guys something that's been keeping me up at night, and by that, I mean I haven't been sleeping. Something's off. This is about my brother. His name is Kevin, and I need you to know something before I start. Kevin was one of the most grounded and most real people I have ever known in my life. I say was because whatever is living in his bedroom right now, that is not my brother. Let's start from the beginning. Kevin was always outdoorsy. Growing up, he'd disappear into the woods behind our parents' property for hours. He said nature gave him peace, and honestly, you could see it on him. Whenever he came back from a hike or camping trip, he just looked lighter. But a few months ago, everything fell apart for him. He lost his girlfriend, his job, and his apartment, all within 6 months. He moved back home with me and my parents, and that spark he always had, it was gone. I found him one night sitting at the kitchen table at like 2 a.m., picking apart a cold slice of pizza. It was the first time I'd see him even attempt to eat in days. So I sat down with them and I said, Kevin, maybe you need to get back out there, back into nature, back to what makes you feel like yourself. He didn't really respond, but he took a bite of his pizza, squeezed my hand, told me he loved me, and went to bed. The next morning, he announced he was hiking the Appalachian Trail. My mom was a wreck about it, obviously, but my dad said something I've never forgotten. He looked at her and said, "People do that hike all the time, Kathleen. If it were dangerous, no one would be bragging about it." And Kevin, for the first time in months, he smiled. Like, actually smiled. We spent the next 2 weeks helping him pack, registering the hike, buying a plane ticket to Georgia where the trail starts. The night he left, my mom kept fussing over him, checking and rechecking his bag, and Kevin just kept hugging her and telling her he'd be fine. Looking back, I wish I held on longer. I wish I had just not let go. He called us from the trailhead like he had promised, and he sent a photo to our family group chat, purple blue mountains behind him and lush green everywhere. He had his slightly off-centered smirk that he always had. His caption said, "Finally made it. Love you guys. Talk when I get better reception." That was the last photo that felt like him. At first, the updates were pretty regular: a photo of the trail, a selfie with caption, proof of life, a short video of a waterfall. But as the weeks went on, the messages got further and further apart. My dad said it was just spotty reception, and honestly, that made sense. It wasn't like they completely stopped. But then, they did. It had been almost 2 weeks with nothing. No texts, no photos, no calls. My mom lost it. We called the police. We gave them everything we had. And they basically told us he went off grid on purpose. Sending out search and rescue would cost thousands of dollars. And there's no evidence anything is actually wrong. They said they'd alert the ridge runners on the trail and tell Kevin to call us if they see him. My mom was furious. I didn't blame the cops, but I also couldn't shake the feeling in my gut that something was wrong. A few days later, a text came through, just a photo of a sunset and words, "Everything is okay here." And that became the new normal. Long silences and a blurry photo with some generic caption, "Look what I saw today, wish you were here." Just enough to stop my mom from panicking. Just enough to make us think he was fine. But one night, I was scrolling through all the photos he'd sent, and I noticed something. In the background of every single photo from the first half of his... But one night, I was scrolling through all the photos he'd sent, and I noticed something in the background of every single photo from the first half of his trip. There was a black smudge. It was too blurry to make out, not animal, not a lens smear, just a dark shape, hovering at the edge of every frame. And after that first text we got when we thought he was missing, the smudge was gone. Kevin came home without a warning. No call, no text, just a sharp knock at the door one night during dinner. My dad opened it, and there he was. His hair was long and matted. He had his patchy beard, his lips were cracked and bleeding, his gums coated in dried blood. He'd lost at least 30 pounds. And he wasn't a big guy to begin with. His clothes were caked in mud, his shoes were worn out. My mom made this sound almost like a yelp and rushed to him. And the smell, I can't even describe it. It was like rotting meat, like something had died on him. My dad just stood there in shock, and Kevin, in this voice that sounded like he hadn't used it in weeks, he just said, "Mom." We told ourselves it was just the hike, that he was exhausted and dehydrated and malnourished, that he just needed rest and a hot shower and a real meal, and he'd be okay. But we were wrong. Part 2 is coming, and I debated whether or not to post this because you can't unsee what the next part shows you. Follow along so you don't miss it, and if you have a creepy story that you feel like no one would believe, you can DM or email me. I hope I didn't scare you too bad. I hope you don't have to get out of bed. And if you ever hear something in the Appalachian Mountains, no, you didn't. Welcome back to After Midnight Stories. If you haven't watched part 1, go watch that first. I'll wait for you. I hope you're all tucked into bed, because after this one, you may not want to get out. My brother Kevin came back from the Appalachian Trail looking like something had hollowed him out. 30 pounds lighter, lips cracked and bleeding, clothes destroyed, smelling like something I still can't describe without gagging. We told ourselves it was the hike, that he just needed rest, food, time, a shower. We were wrong. The moment after he got home, he came downstairs for breakfast, and I want you to really picture this. My mom is standing at the stove, so relieved that her son is home, that she's just piling the food onto his plate, bacon, eggs, toast, and Kevin is just consuming it, all of it. Not eating, but consuming, gulping down mouths full without chewing, barely stopping to breathe. By the time he was done, he had eaten an entire loaf of bread, 2 full packs of bacon, and close to 2 dozen eggs. Then he just got up, grunted at us, and walked back to his room. Over the next few days, I really tried to talk to him. I tried to get literally anything out of him, but it was grunts, one-word answers, nothing. It almost took a full week before he started to talk like a human being again. And even then, something was off. His voice changed. It's still his voice, but it's different. I want to be clear, but there's something underneath it now. It's like a second voice is trying to harmonize with his first voice. It's subtle, but once you hear it, you cannot unhear it. He walks differently too, like his knees are locked. He kind of lumbers, and the smell, the rotting meat smell, it never went away. No matter how many showers he takes, no matter how long he's in there. My parents kept making excuses, readjusting to normal life, parasite from the trail, muscle damage from the hike, and honestly, I wanted to believe them. Then came the night that everything changed. I couldn't sleep. That feeling in my stomach, that dread that had been sitting there since he got back, it was keeping me up. I was lying in bed trying to will myself unconscious when I heard the back door creak open. I got up, crept down the hall. From where I was standing, I could see through the kitchen window into the backyard. My brother was outside on his hands and knees, and he was twitching, like every muscle in his neck and head was spasming at once. His head was whipping toward the ground over and over. I thought he was having a seizure, so I ran outside to help him. His head was buried in the carcass of our neighbor's cat. He was chomping down on it, blood oozing out between his teeth. The animal had been clearly dead for at least a day. Its body was bloated, its eyes were dull and cloudy. He reached inside the cat's body and started stripping off pieces of muscle and tendon. He tossed them back like a grape. I ran back inside and locked the door. I was heading to my room when that smell hit me, stronger than I had ever noticed before, coming from Kevin's room. I don't know why I opened the door. I don't know what I was thinking, but I did. Wrapped up in his bedding were the bodies of 20 animals, rabbits, mice, squirrels in various stages of decomposition, just tucked in like he'd been collecting them. I turned to my parents' room, and that's when I saw him. Kevin was standing at the kitchen window outside, drenched in blood, just staring at me. His head was tilted at an angle that shouldn't physically be possible. I could see the vertebrae in his neck straining underneath the skin. And then he lunged at the window. I screamed. My parents came running. My dad went outside, but Kevin was gone. We called the police. They said it sounded like a mental health crisis, maybe a parasite from the trail affecting the brain chemistry. They're wrong. I know they're wrong. My brother left for the Appalachian Trail. He never came back. Whatever walked up to our front door that night, it knew our address. It knew our mom's name. It had Kevin's face. It had Kevin's voice, but it wasn't Kevin. But I've been thinking about those photos. The ones that he sent before we knew he was missing. There was a black smudge in the background of every single one. Not an animal, not a spear on the lens, just a dark shape hovering over the edge in every frame. After he disappeared and came back, that smudge was gone. I think whatever that was, it haunted my brother, and I think it found him. My brother is gone, but I'm terrified that thing is going to come back. And I don't know what it wants. And that concludes tonight's After Midnight Stories. If you like these, make sure you follow along. And if you have a creepy story that you think no one would believe, feel free to email or DM me. I hope I didn't scare you too bad. And I hope you don't have to get out of bed. And if you hear something, know you didn't. Welcome back to After Midnight Stories. Whatever you do, don't watch this at night. But if you do, I hope you're tucked into bed because you may not want to get out. I didn't think there would be a part 3, and honestly, I was hoping I wouldn't have to make this video, but I owe it to you guys. I have to warn you though, this does not end the way any of us wanted it to. If you're just finding this, my brother Kevin went hiking the Appalachian Trail and came back wrong. Something was using his face, his body, his voice, his memories, but it wasn't him. Parts 1 and 2 are up on my page. Go watch those first. For those of you who've been here since the beginning, here is what happened next. After everything that happened, the backyard, the bedroom, the window, the police and my parents were out in the woods with search dogs looking for Kevin. Their theory was that he had a mental break. Maybe a drug reaction from something that he picked up while on the trail. Maybe an underlying condition made worse by weeks of isolation. I couldn't bring myself to tell them the truth, that whatever was wearing my brother's face wasn't him. Deep down though, I already knew. Whatever they found in those woods, if they found anything, wouldn't be him. They found him though. It was late, my parents were still out with the police, and I was home alone, sitting in the living room, keeping watch out the side yard window. That's when I heard it. A slow, even thunking sound. Thunk, pause. Thunk, pause. Thunk. I crept to the kitchen and looked out through our bay window at the front yard. And there he was, standing in the dark, rocking back and forth on his heels. Every time he rocked too far forward, his forehead would clunk against the glass. Then he'd step back like it would surprise him and do it again. His skin was sallow, slick with sweat, which made no sense because it was November, below 50 degrees outside. His lips were crusted with dry blood. His eyes were this pale, sickly blue, like cataracts. His pupils were dilated, unfocused, just a dead black point staring at nothing. I reached for my phone and called 911. The second I spoke, he heard me. Those cloudy eyes snapped into the focus and locked onto me through the wall. The second I spoke, he heard me. Those cloudy eyes snapped into focus and locked onto me through the wall. This thunking got faster, louder. I gave the operator my name and address and tried to explain that my brother was outside and something was wrong, and he was. The window exploded. He slammed his head into the glass over and over until it shattered, blood smearing across his forehead with every hit, and then he came through. I ran. The only room in the house with a lock was the bathroom. I got inside and bolted the door. I could hear him moving through the house. His footsteps sounded heavy, waterlogged, wrong, glass crunching under his feet with every step, and then sniffing like an animal trying to pick up a scent. As quietly as I could, I grabbed the porcelain lid off of the toilet tank, and I told myself I am not going to go down without a fight. Then silence. No footsteps, no sniffing, nothing. I got down on the floor and looked through the gap under the door. His dead eyes were staring back at me. The door started buckling. He was throwing himself against it with his shoulder over and over. I gripped that tank lid and I waited. That's when I heard the sirens. The cops came in through the broken window and I could hear them shouting. I heard someone yell, "Taser!" and that rapid clicking, it didn't stop him. They told him to stop or they would shoot. He charged. I blacked out after the gunshots. When it was over, they pulled me out of the bathroom. My parents were called back from the woods and told that their son had been found trying to attack me. When it was over, they pulled me out of the bathroom. My parents were called back from the woods and told that their son had been found trying to attack me. They were told that he had been killed after charging at an officer. We're staying in a hotel now. My parents haven't said a word to me since we got here. I think they blame me. I wasn't the one who pulled that trigger, but I was the one who made the call. The autopsy is pending. I've been sitting with this for days now, and I keep coming back to one thing. Kevin was kind, funny, smart, loving, and most of all adventurous. He wasn't that thing that came back to us. My brother died out on that trail, not bleeding out on the floor of the house that we grew up in. I keep thinking about those last photos he sent, the sunset, the caption, "Everything is okay here," and I wonder, was that really him? Or had something already happened by then? Was he already gone? We may never know what that black smudge was in the photos. We may never know what hunted him out there. The autopsy might give us answers, or it might give us nothing. I don't know if I'll ever feel safe again. And that concludes tonight's episode of After Midnight Stories. I hope I didn't scare you too bad, and I hope you don't have to get out of bed. And if one of your family members ever starts acting weird, it probably isn't them.
There is going to come a point to when everyone that lives in Appalachia is just going to stop using Ring doorbell cameras because of the stuff that's getting called on them. Like, have you guys seen this video? Before I show it to you, let me give you a little bit of backstory. So this creator owns like 200 acres in Appalachia. They don't live here, constantly, but they check their cameras. And whenever she went to check her camera, she saw this.
What the fuck is that? What's that?
And it's not like a video, it's a snapped image, which means there was like no movement detection to record a video. It literally snapped in. She also showed what that area looks like as well. I went to the comments and this is what it looks like. This is one of the wildest things I have ever seen. And there is no record of them being in Appalachia. They are in the Scottish Highlands though. And those,
You guys have been loving the Tea After Midnight series, which makes me so happy because I love making these for you. And with that being said, I figured I would bring you a special edition episode tonight. Megan sent over a story that happened to her and her best friends a couple of years ago in the Appalachian Mountains on Valentine's Day. So with that being said, grab your favorite tea and settle in and let me tell you a scary story because, of course, this is Tea After Midnight. Very good. This story comes from Megan. Hi Savannah, I love watching your Tea After Midnight series, and I wanted to send over a story that happened to me and my 3 best friends. With Valentine's Day coming up, it's brought up a lot of memories for me, as this story happened a few years ago on Valentine's Day. My name is Megan, my 3 best friends are Lily, Danielle, and Jess. A few years ago, my friend Danielle had pitched the idea that for Valentine's Day, all of us girls could rent a cabin in the mountains to have a Galentine's Day. All of us being single at the time were very excited about this idea. I was in charge of booking the cabin rental, and the other girls were in charge of what we would do while we were up there. Also, I wanted to add that we live in the city, and we rarely get to go to the mountains, so when Danielle pitched this idea to us, we were very excited. Fast forward to the trip. The night before we left, all the girls came to my house to make it easier for us to leave from my house to head to the mountains where the cabin was at. The cabin was tucked away in the Appalachian Mountains, and looking at the listing of the cabin, I could tell this would be a fun trip. The cabin was newly renovated and looked absolutely beautiful. So the day that we left, we woke up early, packed up the car, and drove several hours away to this cabin. The drive was great. We all had the best fun, laughing, talking, and singing. The GPS told us to take a right onto the driveway, and as I got closer to the cabin, I started to feel nervous. The cabin was a little bit farther into the woods than I would have liked, but when we pulled up and saw how beautiful this cabin was, it put my mind at ease. I could tell by the other girls' reactions that they were so excited. We hopped out, grabbed all of our bags, and started heading into the cabin. We took the evening to get settled into our rooms, and then we cooked dinner and had the best girls' night ever. Everything was going fine until the middle of the night, the first night. All of the girls except me and Danielle had gone to bed. Danielle and I stayed up watching a movie because we weren't ready for bed. As we were watching the movie, I kept hearing scratching outside. Danielle had turned to me and said, "Can you hear that?" I told her yes I could, and that it was probably just a raccoon or an animal outside. It eventually stopped, so we continued watching the movie. About 30 minutes later, Danielle said she was going to bed, but I still wasn't tired. For some reason, I've always had trouble getting settled into new places, but after all that driving and activities we did that evening, I figured that I would be exhausted, but it was quite the opposite. I stayed up and kept watching the rest of the movie. That's when I heard the scratching noise again. It really wasn't that loud, but it was definitely noticeable. I got up and peeked out the window, but I couldn't see anything, so again, I figured it was just an animal. I went to bed because I knew we would be up early, and I slept fine all night and was the last one to wake up in the morning. I walked into the kitchen and Lily and Jess were sitting at the bar drinking coffee. I walked over to make myself a cup, and when I looked out the window, I could see a tree in the backyard with wood chips around the base of the tree. I thought it was odd, but shrugged it off. We all get ready for the day and left to go to a nearby town to spend the rest of the day there. We got home and settled into our pajamas, and all 4 of us were sitting in the living room talking, and that's when we heard the scratching noise again. The girls looked at me, and we all looked at each other in agreement that we all heard the same thing, and that's when I remembered the wood chips at the base of the tree in the backyard from earlier. I walked over to the kitchen sink and looked out the window to see if I could see anything scratching at the tree. But as soon as I got over there, the scratching stopped and I couldn't see anything. There was a porch light on the back porch, so I could visibly see the tree, but couldn't see anything near it. I walked back over to the girls and said I didn't see anything, so we kept talking. After a while, everyone got tired, so we all decided to go to bed. I was asleep when in the middle of the night, I kept hearing footsteps in the hallway. I figured it was one of the other girls, so I just rolled back over and fell asleep. But it didn't seem like it was that long when I heard more footsteps in the hallway. I sat up in bed and looked at the bottom of the door and could see a shadow moving back and forth like somebody was pacing the hallway. That went on for about 5 minutes, and I don't know why I didn't just get up to go check, but something in my gut told me not to go check. So I stayed in bed, eventually falling back asleep. The next morning, I meet the girls in the living room, and we decided we were just going to stay in and have a girls' day. This was Valentine's Day. We all had brought a few bottles of champagne, and we decided to give each other makeovers. We spent the day doing each other's hair and nails, cooking and baking, and truly having the best time. Nightfall comes, and everyone heads back to their rooms to get ready for bed. I was in my room reading, but it had been a few hours, so I figured the rest of the girls had went to bed. That's when I heard the footsteps in the hallway again. This time, they sounded heavier and more frantic. I slipped out of bed, but as soon as I stood up, I heard what sounded like the front door of the cabin slam shut. I grabbed my phone and texted the other girls in the group chat to ask which one of them had just went out of the cabin, but I didn't get a reply. I waited there for what felt like hours, trying to decide if I was going to go to the other girls' rooms. I was absolutely petrified at the thought of having to open that door. I don't know why, but I just felt like something was out there that wasn't one of the girls. After a few minutes of thinking, I decided I was going to go check it out. I didn't have anything in my room to defend myself, so I was truly taking a risk. I slowly opened the door to peer out, but I didn't see anything. I walked quietly over to the other girls' rooms, and all of them were asleep. I actually couldn't believe it because the sound of the door being slammed was so loud that it shook the picture frames on the wall in my bedroom. I walked back to my bedroom and shut the door, turning off all the lights and sitting in the corner of the room in a chair. I was trying to decide if I was going to wake up the other girls and ask them if they had heard that, or if I was just going to wait till the morning. Sitting there already terrified, I then heard what sounded like someone running around the outside of the entire cabin, banging up against the siding. But then I also heard the loud, heavy footsteps running around in the hallway. The footsteps were so heavy again, the picture frames on the walls were shaking. I started to cry, and then I yelled out, "Stop," at the top of my lungs. As soon as I said stop, everything stopped. No more loud footsteps running in the hall, no more loud bangs on the side of the cabin, just silence. My phone went off with a notification in the girls' group chat. Danielle asked if we had heard that too, and I texted back and said yes. Lily replies back and says she thinks we all need to be in the same room. We all agreed to go to Lily's room, which was in the middle, so I braced myself at the door, terrified to open it. But even more terrified to be all by myself, I slung the door open and sprinted to Lily's room, Danielle and Jess right behind me. We sat huddled in the middle of Lily's bed, hugging each other, too scared to speak. We stayed there all night and heard nothing else when we started to see daylight coming through the windows. We got up and slowly made our way into the living room, and as we were walking into the living room, I looked down and noticed there were mud and wood chips scattered about the floor. And that's when I look over to the front door and see that it's cracked open. I turned my head back to the other girls and said, "We need to get our stuff and leave right now." We still had one more night we were supposed to stay, but we didn't care. We were leaving right then and right there. We packed all of our things, threw it in the car, and got out of there so fast. We made it back to the main road. All of us had tears in our eyes. This was something none of us had ever experienced in our entire lives. I asked the girls if they heard anything on the other nights, and Lily said she heard someone in the hallway pacing back and forth for a little while, but figured it was one of us. Danielle and Jess looked at her and said we heard it too. At that moment, we all knew that there was either something or someone in that cabin with us. We didn't know what it could have been, as everybody else heard something outside running around the entire cabin, hitting the siding. Once we got back to my house, the girls ended up staying there with me that night. The next day, I called the host of the rental cabin and told them exactly what we had experienced. They told me that the last group that stayed there just a few weeks prior ended up leaving the first night that they were there, because they said they kept hearing someone hit the side of the cabin and running around in the living room, and when they went to go see what it was, they saw the door slam shut right in front of them, and no one was near it. The host ended up refunding all of our money for the entire weekend because they felt so bad. We've never been so scared in our entire lives. Whatever was there with us was not good, and I pray we never have to experience something so terrifying ever again. I genuinely don't know what to say. I really don't know what's more terrifying, that they don't know what made that noise, or that the people before them had the same exact experience. That is just terrifying to me. So y'all let me know your thoughts. What do you think it could have been? Because I genuinely don't know. If there was something in the living room running around making all that noise, but at the same time there was something outside banging on the side of the cabin, no. That is so scary. And that concludes this episode of Tea After Midnight. I just want to take a minute to say how amazing y'all are and how thankful I am for you, because we just hit 100,000 before I started filming this video, and I just am truly so blessed and grateful for each and every one of you that are here, like genuinely. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for being here and for showing love and support, and you guys mean the world to me, so I appreciate you so much. But with that said, I want to say thank you so much for watching. I hope you have the best night. I love you, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.
They told me not to answer anything in the Appalachian Mountains, even if it sounds human. So a couple years ago, I went hiking through the Appalachian Mountains with one of my friends. We weren't doing anything too crazy, just like a 2-day overnight trip, just on one of the trails. Before we headed out, one of the locals at the gas station asked where we were going, and we let him know that we were just going to go to the Appalachian Mountains. And he just kind of paused and looked at us, and he said, "Okay, whatever you hear out there, don't respond to it." We kind of just laughed it off, but I really wish we didn't. The first night was pretty normal. We got there, we set up, we made some food. But further into the night, that's when things got a little eerie. It got really, really quiet. And when I say quiet, I mean like dead quiet. No bugs, no wind, no other weird noises. At some point when we were sitting in our tent, my friend asked me, "Do you hear that?" And I said, "No, hear what?" And it was my name being called very, very faintly. It was coming from somewhere in the trees, and my immediate thought was somebody was messing with us or another hiker was messing with us. So I unzipped the tent and I stuck my head out and I said, "Hello?" My friend grabbed my arm and he said, "Don't." And then that's when I realized the very faint voice had the same tone as my friend, the same voice. It sounded exactly like him. And then we heard it again, from the distance, my name, in the tone of my friend's voice, but this time it was a little closer. This time it was coming from a different direction, like it was able to move without making any noise at all. And this went on for the next hour. Sometimes it was my voice calling his name, so it was switching off. Sometimes it sounded like somebody was just talking. Sometimes it sounded like somebody was crying, weeping. At times it sounded like it was right outside of our tent. We never checked. We didn't respond. We actually wound up falling asleep at some point, and then when we woke up the next morning, everything felt normal again. Birds, wind, sunlight, we began to pack everything up. We were trying to quickly get out of there because we were spooked from the night before. And as we were leaving, we passed another hiking group, and they said, "Did you hear any noises last night?" And we just kind of paused. And then they said something that really stuck with me. They said, "Sometimes people hear voices at night, and the ones that respond back, they don't usually come back the same." Obviously, after that, we decided to skip the second night, and we just headed back to our car and we left. And we have not been back there since, because whatever was out there knew exactly what we sounded like, and it knew our names.
This is a video filmed by an explorer, and it's real. It happened deep inside the Appalachian Mountains. This creature, it's not the first time people have seen it, but what it really is still remains a mystery. He had been exploring the mountains alone for 7 days. During the day, he filmed insects and wild animals. At night, he slept to the sound of wolves and the wind. Nothing unusual until that last evening. He followed a small river down to a quiet lake.
So listen to me.
Talk about vampires a lot on Spooky Scary Storytime, with listeners writing in all the time about their encounters with what they believe to be vampires. And the other day I got a troll comment from someone who claimed that all modern accounts of vampires were actually stolen from French authors in the 1700s. I looked into this claim and it turns out it's a lie. And the lore of vampires goes back a lot farther, at least to 3000 BCE in Sumerian and Assyrian belief. How do we know that people believed in vampires that long ago? Because in Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization where these beliefs came from, people were obsessed with keeping records. Ancient scribes were obsessed with writing everything down, and so they pressed wet cuneiform into clay tablets that hardened like stone. Since then, archaeologists have recovered thousands of these tablets from ancient ruins, from royal libraries of people like Assyrian kings, and from temple archives. These tablets included incantations and rituals to protect against what they believed were vampires. All of that said, it's not just rumor, it's not just gossip that people believed in it that long ago. There's actual proof. Why did the ancient Mesopotamians believe in vampires? Well, back then, besides obsessively keeping records, people were really concerned with irrigation systems and with living in tight-knit family compounds, and they were also obsessed with religion. There's some argument among scholars as to why they were so religious, but life was extremely harsh, and one of the arguments is that this allowed people to have some sense of control over the extreme heat, the flash flooding, the constant threats of disease, famine, and death. Infant mortality was extremely high. Childbirth was incredibly dangerous, and unexplained disease could wipe out entire families overnight. Back then, there was no germ theory, there was no modern medicine, and so all people really had were these priests that claimed to know everything. And so religion became the center of everything. Mesopotamians were polytheistic, meaning they saw gods in the spirit world in every aspect of daily life. And they also believed in the necessity of proper burial rites. And if you didn't give someone food, drink, and proper burial, enter the underworld that they knew as Irkalla, they believed that your soul would get trapped and you were doomed to wander the earth. So enter the Adimu or Akimu, depending on which record you're looking at. And these were thought to be the vengeful, restless spirits of those who died suddenly, so like starvation, drowning, or weren't given proper burial. And they were denied entry to the afterlife. So they were doomed to wander the earth, and they would sneak into homes and drain the life force of the living. They were believed to go for anyone with a pulse, but they especially sought out the young or the elderly or anyone that was generally perceived as weak, and they spread disease. If family tragedy struck, they were the ones to blame. And they were also believed to be able to inspire crime in otherwise good people. And so families tried to appease them by offering funeral meals whenever someone passed. But if they were ignored, they were known to come and wreak havoc on the family. They would just destroy everything if they were not appeased. And closely related to the Akimu were these two vampire-adjacent entities that were depicted as female. One was known as Lilitu. She was a seductive wind goddess, and some scholars argue that she actually inspired the biblical Lilith. Even more terrifying was Lamashtu, who was this monstrous demoness who was depicted with a lion's head, donkey teeth, bird talons, and bloodstained hands. She was known to target pregnant women and babies and young children because actually back then some bodies of pregnant women and children were sometimes found with their blood completely drained, and people had no explanation, and so they thought that she was feasting on the liquid that ran through these people's veins. They had no other explanation, and so pregnant women often wore amulets to protect against her, but basically she just embodied the ancient horror of losing a child when there really wasn't any medicine besides incantations and amulets. So while none of these entities were what we think of as Hollywood vampires or the entities that we see depicted in movies today, they were explanations for the unexplained. People lived in a world of real unexplained danger. Back then, proper burial and ritual wasn't just tradition or because it was respectable, it was protection against the restless dead. All of these beliefs sort of laid the groundwork for other civilizations that popped up and adopted and evolved these beliefs that led to what we believe as the modern day vampire. The next record I could find of what we believe could be taken as modern day vampires is in 5 BCE in ancient Rome. This is getting really long, but if you want me to continue this history lesson on vampires, let me know and I will be happy to cover different civilizations and what they believed and how we got to where we are today.
So, it has become apparent to me that I have moved into a fully haunted house. I'm not sure how many people have seen, but my husband and I have moved our family into his childhood home. He grew up here. His dad grew up here. I'm not sure when his grandmother acquired it, if it was when she had kids or when she was a kid herself. Either way, this house has been in the family for years. So, I'm the only adult that is home at night. My husband works night in the coal mines. So I'm the only one here. We have 6 kids. The house is huge. My 3 older kids have their own bedrooms. My husband and I have a master bedroom with a closet and a bathroom. Next to it is our 3 younger sons' bedroom, and it's pretty big itself. So, and that's the way I like it. I like for my younger ones to be next to my bedroom at night, so that way if they need me, I'm right there. Well, one night my youngest, who's 6, yelled out to me, "Mommy," and I could hear him because, you know, the rooms are right next to each other, and I yelled back, What's going on?" And he said, "I hear something." And that's when my eyes popped wide open because I realized I heard the sound too, and it was creepy. It sounded like like full-on ghost noises. Okay, well, of course, you know, he ran into my room, and unfortunately for me, I'm the only adult in the house. I'm terrified, but because I'm a good mom, I have to go ghost hunting. Didn't find anything. There were no tablets on. There were no TVs on. Nobody was awake. I have no explanation for this terrible, unbodied sound. Like nothing's. I don't know. There was nothing. Okay. Not only that, once we were moving in and stuff, I would come over to the house while everybody was at school or, you know, my husband was sleeping, and I would clean and put stuff up. Out of the corner of my eye, I see what looks like a child come through the game room, down the stairs, and stand there at the kitchen. And I'm thinking, oh, it's one of my kids, because I can see out of the corner of my eye. You know, it's a person to me. I just can't tell who it is. And I'm cleaning, and I'm like talking, "Hey, what you doing, bud?" And I look up, nobody's there. So I'm like, where did they go? Because I know I saw someone walk through that. There's nobody there. I'm the only one in the house. Okay? Well, a few days after we move in, I take a lamp into my son's room, and my little boy looks at me and says, "Oh, thank you, Mommy." He says, I feel like somebody's in the corner over there looking at me at night, but they're invisible. And I'm like, you know, I tell him, "Oh, buddy, there's no one here. You're safe." But internally, I'm saying, "Oh my God, don't say that stuff. That scares me." So, okay, well, I'm telling my mother-in-law these stories, okay, about what's happening. And she said, there's always been weird stuff happen there. her mother-in-law, my husband's grandmother, said that some man killed his son in this house. Okay? Like, and she's not the only one to tell me that story. My husband's sister said, yeah, that someone died in the house. Supposedly they're buried out in the yard under a tree. And I'm like, well, I hope I don't go to dig up a flower bed and find a skull. So, but I post this online on my Facebook account, all this stuff that's happening. And then here comes cousins and stuff. Yeah, we used to see shadows and people standing in the corners. And my sister-in-law says, yeah, my TV used to come on and off all the time, and stuff on my dresser would move. And I had another one of my husband's cousins say, yeah, the sink in the one bathroom, in my daughter's bathroom, my daughter's room, who supposedly this person died in, the water used to come on and off all the time on the sink. So, yeah. Yeah, I'm 99% sure I live in a haunted house. So, I don't know. Do you guys think I should get some ghost hunting equipment and see what's out there? I don't know. Let me know.
Did you know that deep in the Appalachian Mountains lives a family whose members married within their own bloodline for generations? Because of this, many children were born with severe physical and mental conditions, and their behavior became increasingly unusual over time. The Whitaker family is considered one of the most disturbing real-life examples of the consequences of inbreeding. The parents of Lauren and Ray were first cousins, and like their ancestors continued this dangerous tradition. Only one of the Whitaker brothers was born completely healthy, without serious physical or psychological disorders. He is also the only one able to speak clearly. The rest of the family communicates using simple sounds and noises, which further separates them from normal society. How old are you, Ray? With each generation, the problems became more visible and severe. Eventually, the family became completely isolated, as no one wanted to take responsibility for them. Today, the Whitakers live cut off from the outside world, avoiding contact with strangers because their appearance and behavior often cause fear. After their story spread online, many users warned that if you ever encounter them, it's best not to interact and simply walk away.
So the other day in my TikTok comments, I got told that Melungeon is a horrifically offensive slur, and that the Melungeon people were all cave-dwelling hermits, therefore they did not contribute to shaping Appalachia into what it is today. Also, because I'm white, there's no way that I'm a descendant of Melungeons. Let's talk about that. Now, to be fair, Melungeon originally was used as a slur against the mixed-race people that helped settle the early Appalachians. However, the word has been widely reclaimed by both historians and descendants. And no, they weren't all cave-dwelling hermits. They had family, farms, communities. There was actually one Melungeon family, the Goins, who fought a court case all the way to the Supreme Court in order to obtain access to the native schools for their children. They were denied access because they were believed to be of black descent. However, the Supreme Court actually ruled in their favor and determined there was no way they could be proven to not be native. Then they went on to actually open their own school in their community. That does not sound like cave-dwelling hermits to me. Melungeon families had mixed ancestry, often Portuguese, Spanish, French, Welsh, Turkish, and black. Because of discrimination, at the time they often put on census records, official records, that they were Black German, Black Dutch, or French. Most of these communities were in East Tennessee, Southwest Virginia, North Carolina, and Kentucky. So to say that they didn't shape Appalachia at all is completely unfair, because many Appalachians today are descended from these communities. My own family, my mama and her siblings all had very dark features, naturally tanned skin. My mama's mom was adopted, so that story kind of ended there. So like a lot of Appalachian families, my family filled in the blank by saying, oh, we must be of native descent. This myth kind of started with Melungeon communities. It was safer to claim native ancestry than black or other mixed race ancestry at the time. And when I actually did a DNA test and I found out that I have small percentages of ancestry from all over the world, but not native, that myth was busted. As a matter of fact, what I found aligned even more with Melungeon ancestry: Spanish, Portuguese, Central and Eastern European, Italian and Maltese, Sub-Saharan African, and Peninsular Arab. The truth is, we still don't know everything about Melungeons. We don't know all of their history, we don't know how they got here, but what we do know is that they were real, they existed, and they deserve to be remembered. Talking about them is not disrespectful, but instead it's helping modern-day Appalachians piece together parts of their family that they may have never understood before.
Hello, and welcome to a series that I'm going to be calling Stories After Dark. So get as comfortable as possible and prepare for the scary story ahead of us. This story is from Reddit, and I'll be putting the creator in the caption. Late one night, Sarah was driving down a narrow, unlit country road, the kind of road where every shadow seems to have a life of its own. She was headed to a friend's cabin, and her GPS lost signal miles back. The road ahead was empty, flanked by thick woods on either side. Her car's headlights were the only thing keeping the darkness at bay. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. Surprised, she glanced down at it, but there were no notifications. When she looked back up, something darted across the road. Too fast for her to get a good look, but large enough to make her slam on the brakes. Her car screeched to a stop, heart racing, hands gripping the steering wheel. She scanned the road, her breath catching in her throat. There was nothing. No animal, no person, just the dark road stretching out before her. Shaking it off, she pressed the gas and kept driving, telling herself it was just a deer, but something felt off. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. A few minutes later, her car radio flickered on, though she hadn't touched it. Static filled the air, broken by the faintest whisper. At first she thought it was her imagination, but the whispers grew clearer. She froze, staring at the radio. Was it some kind of malfunction? She reached to turn it off, but the knob wouldn't budge. The whispering continued, more insistent this time. Turn around, it's not safe. Her pulse quickened. Without thinking, she glanced into the rearview mirror. Her blood ran cold. There, standing in the middle of the road behind her car, was a figure. It was tall, too tall, its limbs impossibly long, its face a pale blur. She could barely make out its eyes, dark and sunken, locked onto her. Panicked, Sarah slammed her foot on the gas, speeding down the road, her eyes darting between the road and the mirror. The figure didn't move. It just stood there, watching as she sped away, growing smaller and smaller in the mirror. Finally, she spotted the dim glow of a cabin up ahead and pulled into the driveway, heart pounding, hands trembling. She leaped out of the car and ran to the door, knocking frantically. Her friend opened the door, smiling. You made it, she said cheerfully, oblivious to Sarah's terror. Sarah tried to speak, but something caught her eye. There, just beyond the trees, was the same figure, standing impossibly still, watching. And this time, it smiled. If you watched up to this part, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. If you choose to follow along, thank you even more. And if not, then happy scrolling, I guess. Good night.